What's up, guys? Welcome to my YouTube channel. Today we're going to go over a question that I probably get asked more frequently than anything else, and that's the difference between high-speed sync and neutral density filters. So any of you that follow me on social media, you know that I like to underexpose the backgrounds of my pictures, usually between a stop and two stops. I don't really measure that out. I just take the picture of the background first. I always do that when I'm lighting anything, whether it's inside or outside with one light. I start with the background and then work my way up to the key light. And it usually ends up being about that 1 to 2 stops. There's two main ways that I do that, the ways I just mentioned. And to people that may not know, it may sound similar, but it's actually very different. There's advantages and disadvantages to both. So we're gonna go over those and what situations you would want to use each one in. So the one that I use the most frequently is high-speed sync. That's probably the easiest because if you have a newer strobe, which I use FJ400s, Westcott FJ400s, they have it built in, almost every new strobe does. And what it does is that it allows you to go past your camera's natural sync speed. So there's a maximum sync speed for all cameras. My old Nikons used to be 1/250th of a second. Now I shoot Sony, I have the A1, so it's 1/400th of a second, so it's a little bit faster. So basically that means when you're using a studio strobe, outside or inside, you can go up to that shutter speed or slower and the strobe will fire just fine. So if you want to go past that, you didn't used to be able to because the technology wasn't there the way it works. I'm not going to get into the details of how it works, but it didn't used to at all. So now they've figured out a way around it, but there are some compromises. And one of the main ones is if you shot against a white wall or maybe just against the sky even, you would see there's a gradient that goes over the frame, the faster the shutter speed is. So if you go from 1/400th with my camera, that's the sync speed, if you go past that to 1/500th, you're gonna see a little bit of a black bar. I honestly don't know if it's the top or the bottom of the frame, but it's one of the two. And it's like buying a filter for your camera or using the linear gradient tool in Lightroom or Capture One, where you darken the top of the frame like you do with landscape photography to make the sky look darker. So it's gonna do that in the picture and you're not gonna be able to control it. The faster the shutter speed, the darker the gradient is, which can cause some problems in editing. Now there are some ways around that. You can go to portrait mode, and so let's say the left half of the frame is darker. You can use a linear gradient tool, like I said, to brighten it up, but then it's going to brighten up the background, which it typically only happens on the subject where they're lit, if you're doing a portrait. So that's going to cause a problem because it's going to make the background darker. Now lighter. With Lightroom's new advancements with select subject, it's easier to edit, but you still don't want to spend time doing that if you don't have to. So there's another way around it. You can put the light on the camera left, and light that side of the frame more, light that side of the person more, and have them turn that way. That way it's going to eliminate the gradient on that side, so it's going to make it a little bit easier to edit, and you may not even notice it. But if you're in a situation like this, where we're on a baseball field and I want to get Eli hitting, you know, his bat speed is going to be incredibly fast, so you're going to have a super fast shutter speed. 1/500th or 1/800th of a second isn't going to be fast enough if you want to freeze the motion completely. You're going to need, my rule is always 1/1000th, and honestly that's a little bit slower than I like to have. I like to have a little bit faster. So if you want a shallow depth of field, then you're going to have to go even higher. And I know that on this field specifically, I've shot 1/8000th of a second at f2.8 before. So in a picture like that, you're going to get a gradient no matter what. So that's one drawback. The second drawback is you're going to lose power of the strobe. So the FJ400s are great strobes. That's all I use. They are 400 watt seconds, which that's a good amount of power, but you don't want to lose that, especially on a bright day like this. You want every ounce of power that you can have, especially when you're taking sports pictures and you want to underexpose the background like I want to. So you don't want to lose power. And again, the higher you go with the shutter speed, the more power you're going to lose. So the alternate to that is a neutral density filter. So these have been around for a long time, and this is a breakthrough photography one. I was interested in these a few years ago, and I started researching online, and F-Stoppers had a review on several neutral density filters. This was the one that got the best reviews. A lot of them tend to have a color cast that goes over them that changes the color of the image, and sometimes it can be kind of neat, sometimes it can be a big drawback, but these don't really have much of a color cast at all, which is a really big factor. And they also are really sharp too. So what you have to understand is this is like sunglasses for your lens. You put it on the front like that, so it's going to make everything darker, which means this is a 6 stop, for example. So if I wanted, now this is, you also have to take into consideration that you're only going to use this in certain situations. Now they have a 3-stop also, which I don't have with me, but the 6-stop is only going to be able to use it in really bright conditions, because if the ambient light is dark, then the 6 stops is going to be too much. Because what you're going to do is you want your settings on your camera high enough to underexpose the background or expose it the way you want it, where you can add this to your lens, because what's going to happen is you're going to drop your settings 6 stops. So whether that's shutter speed, f-stop, whatever, that you're going to take the picture and then you're going to put this on, and you're going to drop everything 6 stops. That's the easy formula to get to the correct exposure. So the drawback to, whereas high speed sync, the drawback to that is you're going to lose power, you're going to get that gradient, but with this you can stay at the natural sync speed as long as you get your exposure correct, which with 6 stops you're going to be able to, right? So I could keep max my shutter speed out at 1/400th and put my f-stop at whatever I needed to, and it's going to, with the drop in 6 stops, it's going to be fine, because I don't know what the exact ratio would be with your shutter speed, what it would be above 1/400th equals 6 stops, but that's going to get you all the way down to where you need to be, and then you're not going to have to compromise any power, and you're still going to be able to underexpose the background. However, it does cost extra. I think they're around $150, $160, and I'll put the link at the bottom in the comments, or above the comments in the description of the show, so that you can see where to buy them. So they are more expensive. It's extra equipment you have to buy, and also you have to screw them onto the front of the lens. I think that they're coming out with new ones that are magnetic, which will be really nice. There's also variable neutral density filters, and I have a couple of those, and what I noticed with those is they're not nearly as good as these. They aren't as sharp, and there is a color cast, which it's nice to be able to change, you know, from 3 stops to 6 stops if you wanted to, and anywhere in between on the fly, so you don't have to change filters, but the quality is not nearly as good, so you're going to compromise, and they're cheaper for a reason. These are a little bit more, but they're definitely worth it. So I would suggest looking at these if you're thinking about getting one. So like I said, the drawback, one small drawback, is having to unscrew it and screw it on the front of the lens, and it's pretty easy to do. That's not a big deal. Let me take my lens hood off and just show you. So they have a step up ring and a step down ring, I think, so that you can, if you have a different thread size on your lens, like I have a 7200 and a 24-70, the 7200 is smaller, so the step down ring will allow me to use this filter for both lenses, and it screws on the front and then this screws on that. But what happened, I bought these a few years ago. I had the 3 and the 6 stop, and I put them in my pocket, and you know, I always have good intentions of taking care of things, and then of course I sat on them and broke them. So I didn't want to spend the money to buy new ones, but thankfully they sent me new ones for this. So you have to be careful with them. You have to take into account that it is going to take a little bit extra time to screw them on and screw them off. But if you're willing to deal with that, I mean, it's nice to have both options, honestly. In the perfect world, I would use both, because the other thing is you're not going to be able to freeze action with this. Most cameras don't sync at 1/400th of a second. This one thankfully does, but that's not going to be fast enough to stop him from swinging, right? And that's not going to freeze his swing. So, okay, so now I'm going to shoot for a little bit. I'm going to take an action shot of him. I'm going to have his dad soft toss him a couple, just like I would do a normal athlete, a normal high school senior, for an action shot. I'm going to probably be behind home plate. I'm shooting with the FJ400. We've got a silver collapsible Joe Grimes beauty dish. I might try to light it with that because it's kind of overcast. It was bright earlier, so I have a deep focus reflector also if I need more power. But I think that this might be enough. I might have to take the front diffusion off to get enough power, but we're going to try it with that first, and then we'll take it off if it's not enough, and then if it's still not enough, then we'll put that deep focus on to get a little bit more power. So we're going to take an action shot so I can show you what that's going to look like with high speed sync, and then I'm going to take a portrait of him just standing, you know, still, where I don't need to freeze action. I'm going to take one with the filter and one with high speed sync with the equivalent settings, so you can see the difference in that in the gradient that's going to be over the frame, and if there's any color cast with this. So what we want to do is I'm going to turn my light off for just a second. I've got him where he's going to be, but he's not going to be swinging yet. So I've got my Sony A1. So what I want to do in my 24-70 lens, so I've got my settings, so you can see I've got my camera set to where the background is going to show, the effect is going to show up on the back of the screen, so the exposure is going to be correct. So I'm at 1/1000 f5.6 ISO 100. So I said before that 1/1000 is the limit, and it is. It was a little bit brighter out here earlier, but it's gotten a little, you know, we've got some clouds now, so I had to come down a little bit. That's okay though. We might get that long throw out just so that we can use the 6-stop filter because it's getting borderline a little bit too dark for that now. But we're gonna try this. So I'm gonna take a picture without the light on of him. And so that looks good. The background is nice and dark. There's not a whole lot of detail in the clouds, but there's a little bit back there, so it looks pretty cool. But we're gonna light him up now. So that's the formula that I use, which is not very technical. I just get the background how I want it. I get everybody in place, and then get the background how I want it, and then without the light on, and I turn it on and just adjust to the right power. So that's basically what we're gonna do now. We're just gonna turn it on. I've got my my FJ X2M remote here, so I can control the strobe completely from my camera. So I've got that on group B, so I'm just gonna hit that until we get the manual mode, and now it's on. It was asleep. So now I'm gonna take a test shot. So Eli, just get where he's already in this spot, where he's gonna be. Take a test shot there. So I've got the light a little bit in the corner. That's okay, not a big deal. We might back it up later and put the long throw on, or the deep focus, but reflector, but we're gonna try this for now. So I think that looks pretty good. Okay, so this, we'll see how my timing is doing today. Sometimes I get this right off the bat, and then sometimes it takes a few takes. All right, so what I wanna do here is just let them do their thing. I'm just gonna, you guys just keep doing it, and we'll do like 5 to 10, see how it goes, then I'll look and see how what they look like, and then we'll go again. Letting your athlete get in a rhythm though is a really good trick for making them feel like more comfortable and make them forget they're getting their picture made so they look more natural. Okay, all right, so you guys just go ahead and do your thing. I'll just take pictures. There you go, good. All right, that's good. Okay, so now we've got our action shot. Like I said, I was at 1/1000th, which is the lowest I want to go for an action shot like that. You can see in the final image that there is probably going to be a little bit of blur on his bat because he's swinging so fast. That's okay. It's not a big deal as long as he's sharp. Then it's it's fine. Ideally, I'd like to be a little bit faster, but I could shoot at 2.8 or f4 or something like that. But in the Sony, the A1 has great tracking, and more than likely it would be sharp. I've actually shot here before. I remember the player. I think I was at one, I think I said before, 1/8000th f2.8, and he was sharp. But sometimes you don't want to take that chance, so the higher f-stop you're shooting at, the more it's going to be in focus, obviously. So even if it was just a little bit soft, maybe on his face, like, you can save that. So that's why I wanted to shoot at f5.6, and also say that to you guys, like, you can shoot at 2.8 if you're confident enough to do it, but make sure it's in focus. Okay, so now I wasn't going to shoot that with the neutral density filter, because if 1/1000th is a little bit blurry with the bat speed, then 1/400th is definitely going to be blurry. So there's no point. That's not going to work for that situation. So now you are going to see a difference. I'm going to shoot both of them here. I'm going to shoot with high-speed sync first. So I've got him in front of the bleachers and the net, and then our clouds in the background. So I'm just going to take a portrait, maybe a couple different ones. I think actually the one, like, if you want to just like extend the bat like this, like horizontally, and I'll shoot wide. I'll probably shoot close to 24 and have him hold his hands out towards me so that I get some distortion there, take advantage of the wide angle lens, and that'll give me some depth with the picture, plus the net behind him and the bleachers behind. So you're gonna have the bat, then him, and then the net and the bleachers. That's gonna show depth, which will make the picture more interesting, so that'll be good. So we'll shoot with high-speed sync first, and then I'll put the filter on, and then I'll explain again how to adjust that. Take the same picture, and then you can see the difference. I'll put them side by side. So I actually have my filter on, but I'm going to shoot high-speed sync first, so I know what my settings are going to be. All right, so I'm going to put my strobe to sleep first. All right, so Eli, just I'm going to test the background before I do anything, so I don't have the light on. I'm going to kneel down because I want him to look heroic and big and powerful. So I'm going to shoot up. So I'm shooting wide angle. So. Okay, so that all looks good. Now I'm going to take that off sleep. So we're at the same settings. I'm actually going to move it down though. I'm going to go to 2.8. So that's 2 stops. So we're at 1/4000th of a second. And I know my exposure is going to be good because I've already tested that. So I've got the strobe on at full power. That looks good. Actually looks good what he's doing. Okay, I'm going to move it a little bit closer. Okay, so now, rather than try to explain how to pose, sometimes I just show them. It's a little bit easier. So you don't have to get in your batting stance. You can kind of put your feet beside each other and then extend the bat just like that. Right at me, yep. This way a little bit. There you go, straight towards me. Barrel back a little bit. Come down a little bit. There you go, right there, good. Bring the barrel, the hair and hands down a little bit. Right. Good. All right. So we were at full power with a 400 watt second strobe, and we were at 24 millimeters, and then my settings were 1/4000th, f2.8, ISO 100. So now, take my lens hood off, put my filter on. We're gonna do the exact same thing. So now I need to lower the light. It's a 6-stop filter. So every 3 clicks is a stop on my camera. That's what I've got. That's how it came set. That's how I leave it. So I'm 1/4000th. So I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3. There's 1 stop. So 1/2000th. 1, 2, 3. 1/1000th. That's 2. 1, 2, 3. That's 4. 1/250th. 1, 2, 3. 5. 1 1/25th. So we're already at f2.8. So because it's a little bit dark to use the 6-stop filter. It'd be nice to have a 3-stop right now, but this can work. So now, because I put the filter on, so it made my camera lens 6 stops darker. So I went down on my settings 5 stops with the shutter speed. I need 1 more stop. I could go down to 1/60th. It's a little bit close. Being handheld, I can do it, but you have to really control your breathing, make sure you don't shake. So now what I'm going to do instead, I'm going to raise my ISO to 200, 3 clicks. So now I was at 1/4000th f2.8, ISO 100. Now I'm at 1 1/25th f2.8, ISO 200. And we'll do the exact same shot. Okay, so I can see just looking at the back of this right now before I put the pictures up that the high-speed sync is definitely darker because I lost power. It's maybe, I don't know how much darker, maybe a half a stop, but it does matter whenever it's really sunny outside and you're trying to underexpose the background. So I'll put both pictures up in this video so you can see side by side the difference. And that's basically it. That's the difference between high-speed sync and neutral density filters, the advantages and disadvantages to both. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments below. Make sure that you like and subscribe, like this channel, and subscribe to it. There's gonna be a lot more videos to come. And if you have any suggestions, then you can also email in to framedup@matthernandezcreative.com, and I'll put that at the bottom of the screen too. Thanks for watching.